You know what they say about motherhood? That it's the greatest love story ever told. Well, let me tell you something. Sometimes love stories end with betrayal, and sometimes the person who breaks your heart is the one you'd die for. My name is Clara Mendoza. I'm 59 years old, a retired nurse, a widow, and the mother of one daughter who called me an embarrassment on her wedding day. But before I tell you exactly what happened when I walked into that church uninvited, I need you to do something for me. I need you to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because no mother should ever face the kind of pain I'm about to share with you alone. 3 days before my daughter's wedding, I received an email. Not a phone call. Not a conversation. An email. It said, "Mom, Daniel's family wants a small, private ceremony. Please understand, it's for the best. Don't come." 24 words that erased 30 years of sacrifice. 24 words that told me I wasn't good enough for the life I had given her. But let me start from the beginning, because this story didn't start with rejection. It started with love so fierce it nearly killed me. When Sofia was born, I held her in my arms and made a promise. I whispered into her tiny ear, "I will give you everything I never had." And God help me, I kept that promise. Every single day for 30 years, I kept that promise. When her father died of a heart attack when she was 14, I didn't just become a single mother. I became everything. I was the breadwinner, the counselor, the cheerleader, the disciplinarian, the protector, and the provider. I worked double shifts at the hospital, my feet screaming in those white shoes, my back aching from bending over patients all day, just so she could have what other kids had. You want to know what sacrifice looks like? It looks like eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner so your daughter can have money for the school trip. It looks like wearing the same winter coat for 8 years so she can have new clothes for each school year. It looks like staying awake until 2 in the morning, helping her with calculus homework when you have to be at the hospital at 6 a.m. It looks like smiling when she gets accepted to college and then crying in your car because you don't know how you're going to pay for it. But I found a way. I always found a way. I took out loans, worked overtime, sold my mother's jewelry, whatever it took. Because that's what mothers do, right? We sacrifice until there's nothing left of ourselves, and then we sacrifice some more. And for years, Sofia appreciated it. She would hug me after my night shifts and say, "Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to take care of you the way you take care of me." She would write me Mother's Day cards that said, "You're my hero." She would introduce me to her friends with pride, saying, "This is my mom. She's a nurse. She saves people." When did that change? When did I stop being her hero and start being her embarrassment? I think it started when she met Daniel. Daniel Rodriguez, attorney at law, from one of those families that measure success by the size of their bank accounts and the prestige of their addresses. The first time I met his parents was at dinner at their house, a house so big it could fit my apartment 3 times over. I wore my best dress, the navy blue one I'd bought for Sofia's college graduation. I thought I looked nice. I thought I looked respectable. But the way Daniel's mother looked at me, like she was examining a stain on her expensive tablecloth, told me everything I needed to know. She smiled that fake smile rich people perfect, the one that never reaches their eyes, and said, "You must be exhausted, dear." Raising a child without means, it couldn't have been easy. The way she said, "without means." Like it was a disease. Like poverty was something contagious that might rub off on her precious son. I smiled back and said, "No, it wasn't easy. But it was worth it." And I meant it. Even sitting there, feeling small and judged and unwelcome, I meant it. Because Sofia was worth every sleepless night, every missed meal, every sacrifice I'd made. But something changed in Sofia after that dinner. Something shifted, like a crack in a foundation that starts small, but spreads until the whole structure is compromised. She started calling me mother instead of mom. She started correcting my grammar when we were around her new friends. She started suggesting I might want to dress up a little more when we went out together. The worst part? I let her shame me into trying to be someone I wasn't. I bought clothes I couldn't afford to try to fit into her new world. I practiced speaking differently, trying to sound more educated, more refined. I was erasing myself to make her comfortable, and she was letting me do it. The breaking point came at her final dress fitting. I was sitting in the boutique, watching my daughter transform into a bride, feeling so proud and so grateful that we'd made it this far. The seamstress was pinning her hem, and Sofia was glowing, absolutely radiant. And then she saw my reflection in the mirror. She saw me sitting there in my old shawl, the one my mother had crocheted for me, the one I wore when I needed comfort, and her face changed. She walked over to me and whispered, so quietly the seamstress couldn't hear, "Mom, please don't wear that old thing to the wedding. It looks cheap. Cheap." My mother's shawl, made with love and worn with pride, was cheap. I was cheap. Everything about me, about where we came from, about the life I'd built for us, it was all cheap in her eyes now. I folded that shawl carefully and put it in my purse. I smiled and said, "Of course, sweetheart. Whatever makes you happy." And I meant it. Even as my heart was breaking, I meant it. Because that's what mothers do. We absorb the pain so our children don't have to carry it. But nothing could have prepared me for that email. I was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking my morning coffee, looking at the wedding gift I'd wrapped so carefully, a silver necklace with a pendant engraved, "My daughter, my pride." I was planning to give it to her on her wedding day, maybe while she was getting ready, a moment just for us. Mother and daughter. The two women who had fought the world together and won. And then I opened my laptop and saw her email. "Mom, Daniel's family wants a small, private ceremony. Please understand, it's for the best. Don't come. Don't come. To my own daughter's wedding. Don't come to the day I'd been dreaming about since she was born, the day I'd been working toward, saving for, planning for. Don't come because my presence would be an embarrassment, a reminder of where she came from, a stain on their perfect day." I read that email 17 times. I kept thinking I'd misunderstood, that there was some mistake, that my daughter, my Sofia, my baby, my whole world, couldn't possibly be telling me I wasn't welcome at her wedding. But the words didn't change. They stayed there on the screen, cold and clinical and final. Private. She said Daniel's family wanted a private ceremony. Private. As if love could be private, as if the woman who gave birth to her, raised her, sacrificed everything for her, was too public for their perfect world. As if I was some kind of spectacle, some embarrassing relative they had to hide away. I printed that email. I don't know why, but I printed it and I stared at it until the words blurred through my tears. My neighbor Rosa found me like that, holding that piece of paper like it was a death certificate. Because in a way, it was. It was the death of the relationship I thought I had with my daughter. It was the death of the mother I thought I was. Rosa read the email and her face went white with anger. "Clara, you cannot let them do this to you. You cannot let them erase you like this." But what could I do? Storm over there and demand my invitation? Show up uninvited and cause a scene? Make my daughter's wedding day about my hurt feelings? I looked at Rosa and I said, as long as she's happy, that's all that matters. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Because she wasn't happy, she was ashamed. And I wasn't happy either. I was dying inside, slowly and quietly, like a plant that hasn't been watered in too long. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked around my apartment, looking at 30 years of memories. Photos of Sofia's first day of school, her graduation, her first job. Report cards I'd saved, artwork from when she was little, the Mother's Day cards that called me her hero. I picked up each item and I remembered the woman I used to be, the woman who was proud of her sacrifices, proud of her strength, proud of the daughter she'd raised. Where had that woman gone? When had I become so small, so ashamed of myself, so willing to accept crumbs from the table I'd set? I sat down at my kitchen table and I made a decision. I looked at that wedding gift, that necklace that said, "My daughter, my pride," and I realized something. She was my pride. But I used to be my pride too. And somewhere along the way, in trying to make her into someone she could be proud of, I'd forgotten to be someone I could be proud of. Rosa was right. I couldn't let them erase me. Not because I wanted to cause trouble, not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed to remember who I was. I was Clara Mendoza. I was a nurse who had saved lives. I was a mother who had raised a brilliant, beautiful daughter all by herself. I was a woman who had survived poverty and widowhood and 30 years of putting everyone else first. And I deserved to be seen. So on Sofia's wedding day, I got dressed. Not in the expensive outfit I couldn't afford, not in some costume designed to make other people comfortable. I wore my best dress, the navy blue one, and my mother's shawl. I pinned that silver necklace to my dress, right over my heart, where everyone could see it. And I went to that church. The wedding was beautiful. Of course it was. Everything Sofia touched turned beautiful. That was her gift. She looked like a princess walking down that aisle, radiant and glowing and perfect. For a moment, watching her, I forgot about the pain. I forgot about the email and the rejection and the shame. I just saw my daughter on the most important day of her life, and I was proud. Until she saw me. I was standing in the back of the church, trying to be inconspicuous, just wanting to witness this moment, to be part of her story even if she didn't want me there. And then her eyes found mine. The smile on her face faltered. She stumbled slightly in her walk. I saw her whisper something to Daniel, saw her face flush with anger and embarrassment. The murmurs started then. People turning in their seats, whispering to each other. Daniel's mother craning her neck to see what had caused the disruption. I heard someone say, "Is that her mother?" I thought she wasn't coming. I heard someone else say, "How awkward. Poor Sofia. Poor Sofia." As if I was the one who had caused this pain, as if I was the one who had broken our relationship, as if I was the one who should be ashamed. When the ceremony paused for the exchange of vows, Sofia looked directly at me and whispered, loud enough for the front rows to hear, "Why are you here? I told you not to come." The church fell silent. Every eye was on me. Daniel looked confused. His parents looked mortified. The priest looked uncomfortable. And my daughter, my baby, my Sofia, looked at me with such anger, such humiliation, such disappointment that I felt my heart shatter into pieces. But I didn't leave. Not yet. Because I had something to say. I stepped forward, just one step, and I spoke clearly, calmly, with all the dignity I could muster, because I was there the day you were born, Sofia. I was there for every scraped knee, every nightmare, every triumph, every heartbreak. I was there when you had no one else, and I will be here when you remember where you came from. The silence that followed was deafening. Sofia's face went white, then red, then white again. Daniel reached for her hand. His mother looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. And I realized that I had said everything I came to say. So I turned around and I walked out. I walked out of that church with my head held high, wearing my mother's shawl and my daughter's rejection like armor. I walked out because I had remembered something important. I was worthy of love and respect, even if my own daughter had forgotten it. The drive home was the longest of my life. I kept expecting my phone to ring, expecting Sofia to call and apologize, to explain, to ask me to come back. But the phone stayed silent. And slowly, as I sat in my empty apartment surrounded by 30 years of memories, I realized that this was my rock bottom. This was the moment when I had to choose. I could either spend the rest of my life mourning the daughter I'd lost, or I could start building a life worth living for the woman I still was. That night, I took down every photo of Sofia from my walls. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I needed to stop living for her. I packed them away carefully, tenderly, like I was packing away a dream that had turned into a nightmare. And then I looked around my apartment and I asked myself a question I hadn't asked in 30 years. What do I want? What did Clara Mendoza want? Not Sofia's mother, not the widow, not the sacrifice, just Clara. What did she want? The answer surprised me. I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world beyond this small town, beyond the hospital corridors, beyond the walls of sacrifice I'd built around myself. I wanted to use my nursing skills to help people who would appreciate them. I wanted to wake up in the morning excited about my day instead of dreading it. So I applied for a job, a caregiving position abroad, working with elderly patients in a beautiful coastal town. The agency was skeptical. I was almost 60, had no international experience, would be starting over completely. But something in my voice, something in my determination, convinced them to give me a chance. Rosa thought I'd lost my mind. Clara, at your age, in a foreign country? What if something happens? What if Sofia needs you? I looked at my dear friend and I said, Rosa, at my age, I have nothing left to lose. And if Sofia needs me, she knows where to find me. The day I left for the airport, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, excitement. Not the nervous excitement of worry or fear, but the pure, joyful excitement of possibility. As the plane took off, I looked down at the town where I'd spent my entire life, where I'd raised my daughter, where I'd been rejected and forgotten, and I felt free. My new life was everything I hadn't dared to hope for. The coastal town was beautiful, all white buildings and blue ocean and sunshine that seemed to heal something in my soul. The elderly patients I cared for welcomed me with open arms, grateful for my experience, my kindness, my presence. For the first time in years, I felt valued for who I was, not what I could give or sacrifice. I learned the local language. I made new friends. I discovered that I loved cooking when I didn't have to worry about stretching every dollar. I bought myself flowers, actual flowers, just because they were beautiful and I deserved beautiful things. I started wearing colors again instead of the neutral tones I'd hidden behind for so long. And slowly, day by day, I started to heal. 3 months into my new life, the phone rang. An international number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer it, but something made me pick up. Mom? Sofia's voice was small, broken, barely a whisper. Mom, are you there? I hadn't heard her voice since the wedding. The sound of it hit me like a physical blow, bringing back all the love and all the pain in one overwhelming rush. I'm here, I said. Mom, She started crying then, deep, wrenching sobs that broke my heart even as it hardened it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know why Please forgive me. Please come home. Come home. As if home was the place where I'd been rejected and diminished and forgotten. As if home was anywhere but this beautiful place where I'd finally found myself again. What's wrong, Sofia? I asked, because I could hear something deeper in her voice than just regret. The story came out in pieces, between sobs and silences. Daniel had left her. 2 months after the perfect wedding, he decided she wasn't sophisticated enough for his family's social circle. The same family that had rejected me for not being good enough had now rejected her for the same reason. The irony was almost too painful to bear. But there was more. Sofia had tried to fit into their world, had spent money they didn't have on clothes and parties, and keeping up appearances. She'd racked up credit card debt, lost her job because she was too distracted by her failing marriage to focus on work. She was alone, broke, and desperate. I need you, Mom, she whispered. I need to come home. I need my mom. The old Clara would have dropped everything, would have gotten on the next plane, would have opened her arms and her wallet and her heart without question, would have sacrificed her new life to save her daughter from the consequences of her choices. But I wasn't the old Clara anymore. Sofia, I said gently, I love you. I will always love you. But I can't save you from this. You made choices that led you here, and you need to make choices that lead you out. But I don't know how, she cried. I don't know how to be strong like you. I don't know how to survive on my own. Yes, you do, I told her. I taught you. Every lesson I learned struggling to raise you, I passed on to you. The strength you think I have? You have it too. You just need to find it. We talked for 2 hours. I listened as she cried, as she raged, as she slowly started to understand that her mother wasn't going to rescue her anymore. Not because I didn't love her, but because I loved her too much to keep enabling her to be weak. I destroyed everything, she whispered. Our relationship, my marriage, my life. I destroyed it all. No, I said. You made mistakes. Bad ones. Hurtful ones. But mistakes can be fixed, Sofia. Relationships can be rebuilt. Life can be started over. I'm living proof of that. How can you forgive me? She asked. After what I did to you, how can you not hate me? The question hung in the air between us, carrying the weight of all our pain, all our love, all our broken dreams. And I realized that forgiveness wasn't something I could give her. It was something we would have to build together, slowly, carefully, like learning to trust again after betrayal. I don't hate you, I said finally. But I don't forgive you yet either. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give someone, Sofia. It's work you do together. And that work starts with you forgiving yourself and building a life you can be proud of. After that phone call, we started talking regularly. Not as mother and daughter stuck in old patterns, but as two women learning to know each other again. Sofia got a job, not a glamorous one, but an honest one. She moved into a tiny apartment, started paying off her debts, started building a life based on her own values instead of other people's expectations. And slowly, very slowly, I started to see glimpses of the daughter I'd raised. The strong, compassionate, determined woman who had been buried under layers of shame and social climbing. She was still there, underneath it all. She'd just forgotten who she was for a while. 6 months after that first phone call, Sofia asked if she could come visit me. Not to stay, not to be rescued, but just to see the life I'd built for myself. I said yes, but with conditions. She would pay her own way. She would stay in a hotel, not with me. And she would come as my equal, not as my child seeking salvation. The day she arrived, I barely recognized her. Gone were the expensive clothes and perfect makeup. She looked tired, older, but somehow more real than she had in years. She looked like herself again. We met at a cafe overlooking the ocean. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. Two women who had loved each other and hurt each other and somehow found their way back to this moment. You look happy, she said finally. I am, I replied. Are you? She considered the question seriously. I'm getting there. It's hard, building a life from scratch. But I'm learning who I am when I'm not trying to be someone else. We talked for hours. About her marriage, about my new life, about the mistakes we'd both made. She apologized, really apologized, not just asking for forgiveness, but taking responsibility for her actions. She talked about the shame she'd felt about our modest background, the pressure she'd felt to fit into Daniel's world, the way she'd slowly lost herself trying to become someone she thought was better. I was so angry at you for embarrassing me, she said. But you weren't embarrassing me. I was embarrassing myself. You were just being yourself, strong, honest, real. And I couldn't handle that because I'd forgotten how to be those things. As the sun set over the ocean, she asked the question I'd been waiting for. Can we find our way back to each other? Can we rebuild what I broke? I reached across the table and took her hand. We can try, I said. But it won't be the same as before. I'm not the same person I was, and neither are you. We'll have to learn to love each other as the women we are now, not the mother and daughter we used to be. It's been a year now since Sofia's visit. We're still rebuilding, still learning, still healing. She comes to visit every few months, and our relationship is different now, more equal, more honest, more real. She's building a good life for herself, one based on her own values and dreams instead of other people's expectations. And I'm still here, in my coastal town, caring for people who appreciate me, living a life that makes me proud. I wake up every morning grateful for the second chance I gave myself, grateful for the strength I found when I had nothing left to lose. The wedding invitation came last month. Sofia is getting married again, to a man who loves her for who she is, not who he thinks she should be. This time, she handwrote the invitation herself. It said, "Mom, I would be honored if you would stand beside me as I marry the man who taught me that love doesn't require you to change who you are." I'm going to the wedding. I'm going to wear my mother's shawl and that silver necklace that says, "My daughter, my pride." Because she is my pride, not the perfect daughter I tried to create, but the real, flawed, beautiful woman she's becoming. But here's the thing I want you to understand. If you're listening to this as a mother, as a daughter, as someone who has loved and been hurt and wondered if healing is possible. We teach our children how to walk, but we never teach them how to walk away from us. And sometimes they need to walk away to find out who they are. And sometimes we need to let them go to remember who we are. I spent 30 years of my life believing that being a good mother meant sacrificing everything for my child. I thought love meant making myself smaller so she could be bigger. I thought my worth was measured entirely by her success, her happiness, her approval. But that's not love, that's martyrdom. And martyrdom doesn't create grateful children. It creates guilty ones. It doesn't build strong relationships. It builds resentful ones. And it doesn't make anyone happy, not the mother who sacrifices everything and not the child who has to carry the weight of that sacrifice. Real love, the kind that lasts, the kind that heals, the kind that makes both people stronger, requires boundaries. It requires that you maintain your own identity while supporting someone else's growth. It requires that you love yourself enough to expect respect, even from your own children. If you're a mother listening to this, please don't lose yourself in the beautiful, exhausting, overwhelming work of raising your children. Love them fiercely, support them completely, sacrifice for them when necessary, but don't sacrifice yourself entirely. Because someday, when they're grown and gone, you'll need to remember you are beyond their mother. And they'll need you to model what it looks like to be a whole, complete person, not just someone whose entire identity revolves around them. If you're a daughter listening to this, please remember that your mother was a person before you were born, and she'll be a person after you leave home. She has dreams and fears and needs that have nothing to do with you. She has sacrificed for you not because she's less important than you, but because she loves you. That sacrifice deserves respect, not shame. Your background, your family, your history, these aren't things to be embarrassed about. They're the foundation that made you who you are. And if you're someone who has made mistakes, who has hurt people you love, who has lost your way and wondering if it's too late to change, it's not. It's never too late. You can rebuild broken relationships. You can create a new life. You can become the person you were meant to be. But it starts with taking responsibility for your actions, doing the hard work of change, and having the courage to ask for forgiveness while understanding that forgiveness is earned, not given. Sofia and I are proof that even the most broken relationships can heal if both people are willing to do the work. We're not the same mother and daughter we were before. We're better. More honest, more equal, more real. The pain we went through changed us, but it didn't destroy us. It made us stronger. Before you go, I want you to do something for me. I want you to subscribe to this channel because stories like mine need to be told. I want you to share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe a mother who's lost herself in motherhood. Maybe a child who's forgotten where they came from. Maybe someone who thinks it's too late to change their life. And I want you to tell me in the comments, if you had been in my position, would you have walked into that wedding? Would you have stood up for yourself, or would you have stayed home and accepted the rejection? Because here's what I learned that day in the church, and what I hope you'll learn from my story. You teach people how to treat you. And sometimes, the people who need that lesson most are the ones you love the most. My name is Clara Mendoza. I'm 60 years old. I'm a nurse, a caregiver, a woman who learned that it's never too late to save yourself. And this is my story of how I lost my daughter and found myself, and how we both discovered that sometimes the greatest act of love is learning to love yourself enough to demand better. Thank you for listening. Thank you for witnessing my pain and my healing. And remember, you are worthy of love and respect, even when the people closest to you forget it. Especially then. Until next time, this is Clara, reminding you that every ending is also a beginning, and every heartbreak is also an opportunity to rebuild your heart stronger than before.